On the night before my daughter's wedding, I found out I wasn't part of the family anymore. Not in the way that matters, not in the photos, not in the story they want to tell. Imagine raising a little girl through scraped knees, late night homework, and the ache of losing her mom too soon, only to be asked to step aside like you never existed. That's the punch that still sits in my gut. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I'm Mike Hayes, 62 years old, a union carpenter out of Worcester, Massachusetts. I built houses for strangers and made just enough to build a life for my kid. My mornings still start with a medium hot regular from Dunkin', and my truck is an old 2008 Ford F-150 with the passenger seat worn down from years of Emily riding shotgun. My wife, Marilyn, passed from cancer 8 years ago. Since then, it's just been me and Emily. I thought we were a team. A week before her big day down in Cape Cod, I got an email from the wedding planner. Subject line, final shot list. I clicked it at the kitchen table with the smell of sawdust still on my clothes. I scrolled past the bridal party, the groomsmen, the cousins. Then came the section marked immediate family photos. My name wasn't there. I scrolled back up, thinking I missed it. But no, it was her mom's sister, her mom's husband, and even her fiancé's parents. Not me. At first, I told myself it was a mistake. Maybe they just forgot to type it in. But then I remembered an email Emily sent months ago. We'll do a simple family photo, Dad. Nothing complicated. I brushed it off back then, but now it rang in my head. I pulled out my old leather wallet and slid out the photo I always carry. Emily on my shoulders at 6 years old, both of us laughing, her arms stretched wide like she could fly. That picture felt heavier than the wallet itself. See, I'd already given Emily the biggest gift of my life. I sold the old cabin up at Moosehead Lake, the one Marilyn loved, so Emily and her new husband could start theirs. $500,000. $500,000 wired into escrow for a condo in Somerville. Harbor Title was holding it, and the closing was set for the Monday after the wedding. I'd even printed the gift letter the bank needed, promising this money was truly a gift, no strings attached. I folded that letter and slipped it in the inside pocket of my wedding vest, but I hadn't signed it yet. That part mattered more than Emily realized. The rehearsal dinner was at Legal Seafoods on the harbor. Everyone was laughing, champagne flowing. When Tyler, her fiancé, stood up to toast, he wrapped an arm around Emily's stepdad and said, "Couldn't have asked for a better dad in the picture." People clapped. I swallowed hard, fiddling with the butter knife in front of me. A few minutes later, the planner leaned close and whispered, "For the aesthetic, we'll keep nuclear family tight for the photos tomorrow." That's when Emily looked right at me, cheeks flushed, and said under her breath, "Dad, can you just step aside for this part? It'll make things easier." That was the first twist, not an accident, not a mistake in the email, a decision. I felt my ears burn, but I just nodded like a fool, like I was agreeing to be invisible. I drove back to the hotel that night. The salt air thickened my lungs, and I dialed the number of my banker at Chase. "If I pull the wire now," I asked, voice steady, "will it hit before the 5 o'clock cutoff tomorrow?" He hesitated, then said yes. My hand tightened around the steering wheel. The leather wallet with that photo of 6-year-old Emily sat heavy against my chest. That night, I laid the unsigned gift letter on the desk in the hotel room. $500,000 for a family portrait I wasn't allowed to be in. And as I folded it back up and slid it into my vest, I made a call that would change everything. "Freeze it," I told him. But that was only the beginning. Because the next morning, someone slipped an envelope under my hotel door, and inside was my signature on that very gift letter, signed in ink I never touched. The morning of the wedding, I bent down to pick up the envelope that had been slipped under my hotel room door. My heart sank the moment I saw what was inside. A printed gift letter, already signed, my name in bold black ink. Only thing was, I never signed it. Whoever did had copied my signature well enough that a casual glance might have passed it off. But I knew my own hand. I've written my name on thousands of pay stubs, union forms, tax returns. This wasn't mine. My first instinct was to storm into Emily's suite, wave the paper in her face, and demand answers. But I didn't. I sat on the edge of the bed, the Cape Cod sun glaring through the half-closed curtains, and just breathed. My gut told me there was more here, more than just being pushed out of photos. I picked up the phone and called Kaplan, my attorney for the family trust. I told her about the document, about how it must have been forged. She asked me to forward a copy. 10 minutes later, she called back, voice tight. Mike, this DocuSign trail shows the completion came from a shared office space in the Seaport District. Time-stamped 11:47 p.m. Someone tried to make it look like you signed, but the metadata doesn't lie. The betrayal cut deeper. It wasn't just being erased from the wedding. It was fraud. And fraud carried weight, legal, financial, moral. By noon, I drove to the venue in my old F-150, the dashboard sticky from years of Dunkin' cups. I parked at the far edge of the lot, where the hydrangeas framed the white-tented ballroom. Families bustled in, photographers darting around like hornets, calling out names. I watched from a distance as Emily's stepdad adjusted his tie, standing center frame while Emily beamed in her gown. My chest felt tight, but I stayed still. I didn't want to ruin her day, not yet. Inside, things were worse. My place card had been shifted. Instead of sitting near the head table, where a father usually sits, I was shoved out to table 14 with friends of the family. The couple across from me were neighbors of Tyler's parents. They barely knew my name. The insult wasn't subtle. It was deliberate. And then came the bartender. A kid no older than 22 leaned in and said, Mr. Hayes, just wanted to confirm your credit card's still covering tonight's open bar, right? My stomach dropped. I hadn't authorized that. I pulled up the vendor portal on my phone. Sure enough, the card on file wasn't mine. But the signature on the authorization form was. My name, again, in a hand that wasn't mine. That's when the second twist landed. This wasn't sloppy. It was calculated. Someone was trying to tie my name, my credit, my money into every corner of this wedding while cutting me out of the parts that mattered. They wanted the cash, not the man. I texted Tyler, kept it simple. We need to talk. Now no response. Seen, nothing more. Through it all, I kept my face calm. I smiled at guests who barely recognized me, raised my glass at the toast, pretended the salmon on my plate tasted better than cardboard. But inside, a storm brewed. The first dance ended. The applause rose, and I slipped out into the hallway. My phone buzzed. Kaplan again. Mike, I've got more. The escrow disbursement for the condo is set to release Monday morning, but without your signed gift letter, it won't clear. If they try to push through with the forged one, it's wire fraud. Her voice was firm. Do you want to file now, or wait? Wait. That word rattled around in my head. Filing right then would blow up the wedding. Waiting meant letting them dig their own hole deeper. I chose to wait. But fate had other plans. As I slid the phone back into my pocket, the venue manager intercepted me. Mr. Hayes, could I have a word? He led me to his office, a cramped room with walls lined by liquor invoices. On his desk lay the authorization form for the bar. We got this last night, he said, tapping the page. Signed by you. But when I checked security footage, the gentleman who handed it in wasn't you. It was... He flipped the monitor around. The grainy video showed Emily's stepdad, Marilyn's widower, standing at the counter, pen in hand. My blood went cold. The betrayal wasn't just Emily's. It was orchestrated by the man who married into my late wife's family. The man she trusted after I was cut out. He wasn't just replacing me in the photos. He was trying to replace me everywhere. That was the moment I knew this wasn't about a wedding. It was about erasing me completely. I thanked the manager, tucked the evidence into my jacket, and walked back into the ballroom. The band had just started playing Sweet Caroline, the whole room singing along, swaying in unison, Emily caught my eye from across the dance floor, her smile faltering when she saw my face. I raised my glass to her, steady as a rock, not in anger, not in despair, in warning, because in that instant I made a silent promise. If they wanted me gone, they were about to find out what it really meant to lose me. And just as I set my glass down, Tyler grabbed my arm, his face flushed with panic. "What the hell did you do, old man?" "You've just blown up our condo deal." The entire room went silent. Tyler's words hit me like a hammer against the ribs. "You've just blown up our condo deal." The whole ballroom froze. Forks clinked against plates, then silence swallowed the room. My daughter's eyes darted between us, panic flickering behind her smile as if she could still patch it together with one more toast, one more laugh. But there was no patching over this. Not anymore. I didn't shout, didn't throw my glass or storm out. I just looked Tyler dead in the eye and said, calm as a winter lake, "That deal was built on my money, my name, and forgery. You knew it." The word forgery carried weight. People at the nearby tables turned their heads. My lawyer's words echoed in my mind. Wire fraud, felony-level stuff. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was criminal. The band fumbled to a stop, a singer's nervous laugh filling the space. The venue manager appeared at the edge of the dance floor, pale as a sheet, clutching the sign bar authorization like it was toxic. He gave me a tiny nod. He knew. I knew. The question now was, would Emily admit what she knew? I caught her gaze. For a split second, the confident bride crumbled. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Then she turned toward her stepdad, the man who had replaced me in the family photos. His jaw clenched, sweat beading under his hairline. That was twist number 3. Up until then, I thought maybe this was Tyler's scheme alone. But no, it was the stepdad, too. He wasn't satisfied just playing dad for the cameras. He wanted my role, my signature, my authority. Piece by piece, they were cutting me out and sewing him in. I walked off the dance floor and motioned for the manager to follow. We slipped into the back corridor, past the kitchen doors banging open with trays of chowder and lobster rolls. The hallway smelled of garlic, butter, and sweat. The manager whispered, "We've got security footage." "It's him, your ex-brother-in-law, my late wife's husband," I corrected, voice flat. "Not my family." I dialed Kaplan again, told her everything. She didn't hesitate. "Mike, you need to decide. Do we file with the DA tonight, or wait until they try to push the condo closing Monday?" I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. Out in the ballroom, I could hear the music starting again, forced laughter, a bride desperate to salvage her fairy tale, and me, standing in the service hallway of a Cape Cod wedding, holding evidence that could turn that fairy tale into a headline. Here's where the moral weight settled on me. Do I let it slide for Emily's sake? Do I pretend I didn't see my signature forged, my credit card hijacked, my identity twisted? Or do I let the hammer fall, knowing it would crush her brand new marriage before the cake was even cut? I walked back into the ballroom. People parted around me like I was contagious. Emily stood near the sweetheart table, clutching her bouquet so hard her knuckles went white. Tyler hovered beside her, face blotchy, sweat dripping down his collar, and the stepdad. He just glared, daring me to say the words out loud. So I did, loud enough for the microphone to pick up. "Someone forged my name to steal my money." And I have the proof. Gasps rippled across the room. One of Tyler's uncles muttered, "Jesus Christ," under his breath. The DJ cut the music completely. All eyes locked on me. Emily's voice finally broke through. "Dad, please, don't do this here." Not today, and that was twist number 4. She wasn't shocked that it happened. She was begging me not to reveal it, which meant she knew. Maybe not every detail, maybe not the mechanics of escrow and wire fraud, but enough. She knew they were using me as a wallet and nothing more. I felt something inside me snap, but not in anger, in clarity. This wasn't my daughter asking. Not really. This was someone I raised who'd chosen to erase me, piece by piece, dollar by dollar. I leaned in close enough for only her to hear. "I didn't ruin your wedding, Emily." "You did, the second you erased me from it." Then I straightened, turned to the manager, and said, "Make sure the bar tabs are cleared off my name. From here on out, nothing tied to me gets billed. Not tonight, not Monday." The room erupted into whispers, half the guests staring at me with pity, the other half with suspicion. I could feel the judgment already, some thinking I was cruel for exposing this on her wedding day, others nodding silently, knowing exactly what betrayal feels like. And just as I started walking toward the exit, my phone buzzed. It was Kaplan again, her voice cut sharp. "Mike, the condo seller just notified Harbor Title. They're aware the gift funds are frozen. Tyler's earnest money, 25 grand, is officially at risk." I stopped dead in my tracks. Behind me, Tyler's voice cracked across the ballroom, dripping venom. "You vindictive old man, you're destroying our lives." I didn't turn around. I just pushed open the heavy wooden door, the cool Cape Cod night rushing in, carrying with it the salt air and the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Because in that moment, I realized something chilling. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about survival. And Monday morning, when the banks opened, survival was about to turn into reckoning. I pushed through the wooden doors and let the night swallow me whole. The cool Cape Cod air hit my face, briny and sharp, like it wanted to wash the last of that ballroom stench off me. Behind me, the muffled chatter rose into chaos. Inside was a perfect little picture they'd tried to paint without me. Champagne, fairy lights, fake smiles. Out here was the truth. I stood under the hydrangeas, phone buzzing in my pocket. Kaplan again. "Mike," she said, "the venue manager just sent me the footage and the forged documents. This isn't just fraud. This is identity theft. If you press, we're looking at criminal charges." I glanced back at the glowing ballroom windows. Through the glass, I could see my daughter swaying in her white dress, bouquet limp at her side, Tyler whispering furiously in her ear, and the stepdad, standing tall, jaw set like a man who thought he'd won. I'd spent 62 years working with my hands. I know what it feels like when something cracks under pressure, the sharp snap of wood, the pop of a nail giving way. That's what this moment felt like, a lifetime of pressure finally breaking free. I walked back inside, slow and deliberate. My boots clunked against the polished floor, the music halting mid-song as I entered. Eyes turned again, whispers, forks set down. I didn't need a microphone this time, my voice carried. I just froze the escrow account for that condo. The $500,000 you thought you were getting? Gone, because it was never yours to take. And the forged documents with my name on them? I raised the envelope, already in the hands of my lawyer, already logged by Harbor Title. Monday morning the sellers will walk, and you'll be left with nothing but your lies. The gas that went through that room was sweeter than any toast. Tyler lunged forward, face red, veins standing out at his neck. "You can't do this. That money was promised." I locked eyes with him. A gift is only a gift if it's given, not stolen. People started murmuring, heads swiveling toward Emily, toward the stepdad. Guests who had once clapped along to their perfect little speeches now looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. The venue manager stepped forward, calm but firm. "We've reviewed the authorization forms." "Sir," he looked straight at the stepdad, "this signature belongs to you. And we have security footage confirming it. You'll need to come with me to discuss this." The stepdad's face drained of color. Emily's bouquet slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a dull thud. That was the moment everything collapsed. Not with a bang, but with silence. A silence that exposed the rot under all the glitter. I turned back to Emily, my voice softer now. "I didn't come here to humiliate you. I came to stand where I belonged. And you tried to erase me. But the thing about erasing a man like me? The ink never fades. The truth always bleeds through." She shook her head, tears cutting tracks down her makeup. "Dad, I didn't know?" I cut in. "You asked me to step aside for the photos." You sat by while your husband and your stepdad forged my name. You knew enough. The weight of those words landed heavy. Guests were no longer pretending to sip their wine or check their phones. They were watching, really watching, as the perfect fairy tale unraveled. I picked up my glass from table 14, held it high, and said, "To family. Real family. The kind that doesn't need forged signatures to belong." Then I set it down and walked out, leaving the room buzzing with questions they'd be chewing on for weeks. Out in the night, I felt lighter, not happy, not sad, just free. The kind of free a man feels when he finally stops carrying someone else's weight. Behind me, through the walls, I could hear raised voices, Tyler shouting, Emily sobbing, the stepdad trying to explain himself to the manager and a couple of cops who must have been called in. Every step toward my truck felt like reclaiming a piece of myself they'd tried to bury. My boots hit the gravel, steady and sure. The leather wallet in my pocket pressed against my chest. That old photo of Emily at 6 years old still tucked inside. A reminder of who I was and who they lost. I slid into the driver's seat, turned the ignition, and let the engine rumble alive. My phone buzzed one more time. Kaplan again. Her message was short. "Monday morning, it's official." Their condo deal is dead. I stared out at the Atlantic. Dark and endless. Then I smiled, just a little. Not because I destroyed them, but because I finally stopped letting them destroy me. Monday morning came like Judgment Day. The Cape Cod salt air was long gone, replaced by the gray hum of Boston traffic outside Harbor Title's office. I sat in the waiting area, leather jacket creaking as I shifted in the chair. In my hand, the file Kaplan had prepared. Forged signatures, credit card authorizations, security footage, timestamps. Every lie laid out in black and white. Across the lobby, Tyler paced like a caged animal. His tie hung loose, hair wild, the polished groom already unraveling. Emily sat stiff in a navy dress, eyes red from a weekend's worth of tears. And next to her, the stepdad who'd thought he could wear my face on paper. He wouldn't even meet my gaze. The title officer called us in. The room smelled of paper and toner, walls lined with closing binders. He cleared his throat. The funds required for the condo purchase are no longer valid. The escrow has been frozen due to fraudulent documents tied to Mr. Hayes's identity. This closing is terminated. The silence that followed was heavier than any hammer I'd ever swung. Tyler slumped into his chair, muttering, "You've ruined us." I leaned forward, voice steady. "I didn't ruin you. You did that the moment you put my name where it didn't belong." That's when the final twist landed. The officer slid another document across the table. "We're obligated to notify authorities when fraud is detected. Law enforcement has already been briefed." He looked directly at the stepdad. "Your signature on the bar authorization and this forged gift letter is clear. The venue has pressed charges." The stepdad sputtered, face pale. Emily's hand slipped from his arm like she didn't know him anymore. Tyler looked between them, realizing the house of cards he married into was collapsing before his eyes. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just gathered my papers, stood up, and walked out with Kaplan at my side. Behind me, voices rose. Panic, excuses, the sound of people realizing the mask had come off, and the crowd finally saw the rot underneath. By that Friday, word had spread back through Worcester and beyond. The stepdad was put on administrative leave from his school pending the investigation. Tyler and Emily lost their earnest money deposit. 25 grand gone. Their condo deal was dead, and so was their reputation in the tight-knit circle of their church. The irony? That $500,000 didn't vanish. It went somewhere it belonged. The Marilyn Hayes Scholarship, named after the woman who held us together when we were still a family, opened its doors that same week. The first recipient was a 17-year-old girl who wanted to study robotics. When I handed her the award letter, her parents cried like it was oxygen after a fire. Emily didn't call me, not right away. But late one night, weeks later, my phone buzzed. Her voice was small. Dad, if we come home for a while, will there be a place for us? I looked over at the empty rocking chair Marilyn used to sit in, still creaking when the wind slipped through the cracks of the porch. And I didn't answer right away, because forgiveness isn't simple. It's earned. The truth is, betrayal doesn't just steal your money, it steals your reflection. It makes you wonder if you ever mattered at all. But standing there, watching the walls close in on them, I realized something. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just stands its ground, steady and unshaken until the lies collapse under their own weight. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You can't buy family with condos and fancy photos. Real family is the kind that still calls your name when the lights are off and no one's watching. Have you ever been cut out of something you built with your own hands, only to watch others try to claim it as theirs? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. And if my words hit somewhere in your chest, stick around because I've got more stories like this to tell. Sometimes the only way through heartbreak is to speak it out loud.